Oh, I'm live. Hooray. Hi, everyone. I know it's been a while since I have been on my channel, and I do apologize for that, but I have been very busy. Hold on just a second. Excuse me. I got a bit of a cold. Um, so I figured I'd start doing, at least in 2019, one video a month. I'm going to try to come on here and just talk with everyone. Hi. Good to see you here. So today I thought I would kind of talk about the nature of the demonic. So hi Shay. So this year I've decided to do maybe a series of videos just discussing different, uh, maybe more philosophical parts of demonolatry, because people complain a lot that that's a part of my books that I don't really get into is the philosophy. And some of them I do, some of the things that I do, but I'm gonna have videos like today is like the nature of the demonic, and I'm gonna be talking about foundations of magic and ethics with regard to magic, and things like how your own thinking can limit you. So there's like a whole list of things that I want to cover this year. But I figured I could do at least one a month, in the very least, to kind of give you guys some, I don't know, some input on these things. And of course, those of you watching live are welcome to ask questions. And I always, go ahead and get in there and try to answer as many questions as I can. So the nature of the demonic. What's interesting is, so many different people have different views of the demonic. That's one of the reasons my books tend to stay out of the philosophy of things. I'm not trying to promote a religion. I don't want followers. That was never ever my goal. My goal is to share information with people that hopefully inspires them to their own practice and helps them in some way and enriches their lives. It has nothing to do with, oh, well, my beliefs are the only set of beliefs and you must believe exactly like I do. To me, that's a bit dogmatic, and that kind of goes against thinking for yourself. So that's why I think it's very important for each person to cultivate their own relationship with the demonic divine that makes sense to them, that works with their philosophy and their own beliefs. And that's one of the reasons you'll find that I am just kind of so, I just kind of lay everything out on the table with regard to here are things you can do. And that's why a lot of the books seem more surfacey and not so philosophical and full of all that purple prose that so many occult books are riddled with. And that's fine. A lot of people like that. A lot of people like reading other people's philosophy. And for them, that's truth. And that's fantastic. But I also recognize the reality that most demonolators have different beliefs. Some people actually believe in the Christian mythology. They believe there is a Satan and a God warring, and that there's demons underneath Satan in that respect. Um, people, some people really, that mythology resonates with them, and that's fine. I don't necessarily agree with that personally. Other people, they look at the demonic as archetypes, as sources of pure energy. And of course, then when you get into the discussion of worship, people will say, well, I don't worship my electrical box, or I don't worship energy. Well, one thing we have to understand is that the word worship itself has been given a bad rap through Christianity and religions like that, where worship means to grovel before, and it means to, oh, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy. That is not the actual definition of worship. The actual definition of worship is to hold something in high regard and to show it great respect. So when you're working with these powers that are these demonic forces that you're working with, you are holding them in high regard and respecting what they have to offer you and respecting what they have to teach you. So that's where, where some of my beliefs and some of the beliefs of like a lot of other demonolators may not mesh so much, just because um, we are currently in a, a state within demonolatry where a lot of people just want to do pacts. They want to write up pacts to make deals with demons, and then they want to have like this exchange of services, like, oh, I'll give you, an offering of this if you give me this. Um, and I have to be honest with you, that was never as much of a huge thing in uh, in traditional demonolatry. When I was like being brought up in this religion, that wasn't as big of a thing as it is now. So it's a little different for me. It's a different climate, and I have nothing wrong. No ill will against anybody who wants to just do tons of offerings to the spirits they're working with, and that's fine. But and while I do give offerings, it's usually during ritual and it's usually in the form of blood, depending on the demonic divine that I'm working with, which set. Because again, my belief in the demonic is a lot different than a lot of other people's. I personally believe, um, of course, that the word demon means divine intelligence. There are a lot of different spirit classes that fall into divine intelligence. And this is the part that really freaks people out. I believe angelic beings are one type of divine intelligence, and they vibrate at a much higher level. They are on a higher sphere of existence. Whereas you get demonic forces like jinn, who are closer to the earth sphere, which is why so many people feel more comfortable working with jinn. And the jinn, of course, the 72 spirits of the Goetia fall into that jinn category. So you have like there's different spheres, different spirits that reside in different spheres, and they can teach you different things. The relationship I have with the demonic isn't that I'm their servant so much as I am their student. I am their student, and they are teaching me different things. So, so when you're talking about the nature of the demonic, some people will view them as energy sources, or even sentient type energy sources throughout the universe, or the building blocks of life. Um, and then there are other people who will view them in a mythological, traditional sense. And of course, I am of the belief that a lot of mythology was a priest's way of explaining difficult concepts to laymen. I found that there's a lot about ancient magic, especially, that kind of it follows not only the natural world, but it also is maybe early attempts at scientific discovery. So there's a lot more there, and I would probably have to actually prepare something to give you ideas there. But if you read some of the uh, ancient Egyptian texts, some of the stuff that they talk about, and you get into Hermeticism and you start reading the philosophical approaches to that, you'll find that a lot of it is about um, how the universe was created, how all of these elements mixed together to create life and everything within our universe. So you get into that, and it starts getting really complicated. But again, it's a personal preference. So let's see. Oh, there are some questions here. Let's see. Can you define and what's the best way to work with demons? There are a lot of opinions on that. Personally, I do believe that the more respectful you are, the further you're going to get. You catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. So I have had, for the last 30 some odd years, a very good working relationship with the demonic when I show them respect. I do not push them around. I do not demand anything of them. I do not threaten them. And I found, I mean, we can go into, because that always brings up the question, well, won't they lie to you and tell you untruths and everything like that? And just remember, when a demon does something, there's always a purpose behind it. They don't just do things just to do things. And that includes things like possession, and that includes things like, lying to you, or, turning your life upside down. There's always a reason. It's just whether or not you're able to see that reason and understand it. So, oh, thank you, Lucia Faye. She said she found someone pirating my books again. I actually got an email earlier today about somebody pirating my books. You just can't win with the pirates. They're just gonna send them out there, whatever. But if you want actually decent formatted copies of my books, probably best to buy the paperback. They're a lot easier to search through that way anyway when you have them on your shelf, especially if you're looking for like recipes and stuff like work cutting for demonolatry. You got to have that in paperback. There's just no, you could have it on the Kindle. It kind of sucks. I don't know. With regard to nonfiction on ebook, it doesn't always work so well. It depends on the book. Thank you. Someone here said that they love my books. Yay. That's always good. But my whole goal in writing the books is to inspire others. And hopefully there's something in them to inspire your magical practice and help you develop a better relationship with the demonic divine. So that is the whole reason I write, is so that I share with like-minded people. For people who don't like my work, that's cool. I'm sure they'll find something else out there. I didn't write my books for those people. I wrote it for those of you who find them useful. So that's always a plus. But as far as how we view the demonic, again, that's as varied as the magicians who will end up watching this video. And I don't think you can like assign one truth to something like that. I don't believe in one true ways. And as long as it depends where you take it too. I mean, you can take any belief system to a very dark place and it won't work for you, or you can take it to a place where it's helpful and it enriches your life. So that's what it comes down to, is what you believe, what your mythology is. And of course, people are like, oh, well, why don't you just talk to the demons and they can just tell you what the truth is. And of course, the funny thing about that is the demons will always confirm each individual's truth. So that's kind of an interesting side note there. Let's see. Oh, another question. What would be the newest logic I have learned about the demonic? I would say that the demonic is always listening. They they generally answer. It's just whether or not you're paying attention enough to hear it. I don't think necessarily you have to be you have to have like strong mediumship skills to actually understand what they're trying to tell you. You just have to be very self-aware and very analytical about your own life, and you will get the answers that you're looking for. Yeah, they are always listening. You'll say one thing and they'll be like, okay, well, here you go. So be careful what you wish for. That's all I got to say about that. But that gets into the whole ethics of magic thing. And that is going to be next month's topic for February. Because I do believe, we have an ethical responsibility as magicians to not screw ourselves. So, and there are ways you can definitely do that. But we won't get into that. You always draw flies wherever you go. What does that mean? Well, I'm one of those people. I do kind of how to say this. I'm kind of skeptical in my own way, which is kind of ridiculous considering I've had a lot of experiences that have proven to me that what I'm doing and what I'm believing is correct. But I often look for the most scientific explanation first, and it could just be a coincidence. So I don't know necessarily that would mean anything unless flies have a specific meaning for you. If flies annoy you a great deal and you find yourself always in the company of flies, it could be something like maybe you need to rethink how you look at things so they're not nearly as annoying. But I would look at things like that, or if you're looking for some sort of meaning. But sometimes flies are just flies. So I don't know necessarily that that's like a particular demon. It's kind of like when people come to me, and I get this question a lot. Like people will send me an email and they'll be like, I had this dream or this vision of a man with white hair, and he was like 7 feet tall, and he had broad shoulders, and he was wearing, an equal armed cross on his armor, on his chest or whatever. And they'll be like, which demon was it? And I'm like, your guess is as good as mine. Because here's the thing. I really do believe that demons appear to each of us in a way that we will be most receptive, which means that demons don't appear to every single person in the same way. So now, if you do believe it, I had a friend who actually believed that when she saw demons in her dreams, they would always resemble the demons in Colin de Plancy's Dictionary Infernal. So there's that. But that doesn't work for everybody. Some people will see Leviathan in the feminine or Lucifer in the feminine, whereas others of us will say he or she. Now, it's interesting, like it's really important when we're perceiving demons that we understand that, first of all, they often do appear to people as that in a way that you will find most receptive. But sometimes they will mirror your own fears back at you, depending. If you are a very fearful person, they might say, okay, you really need to get over this fear. And so here, I'm going to appear in a way that is terrifying for you because you need to face this. It's not because, oh, I just want to mess with you. That's not it. They want you to face that fear. And that is something that, a lot of people don't actually get. But another reason we give the demonic gender. We give them likes and dislikes. And the reality of it is they're not us, just like invisible sky daddies. They're not like, that's not what the demonic is. It's just that the human brain tends to associate. We have associations that we need to make. So if an energy to us feels masculine, then we call it a he. If, the energy the demon's giving off is like, I don't know, jovial, we'll interpret that as emotion. So it's kind of interesting. We're talking at this point about vibration and feelings that we get when we work with particular demons and how we translate those in our brain into a way that we can comprehend them. So, we give them human form oftentimes, or even animal form or something familiar so that we can relate to it. So thank you, Entity Box. I appreciate that. So, yeah. So M. Delgado has said that she agrees that Ronov has appeared to her as a handsome mixed man. Absolutely. I know a lot of people who see Leviathan in the feminine, and I'm very much a Leviathan in the masculine kind of guy or kind of girl. So, yeah, not with horns. Although I have had dreams where I'm like talking to a demon and it has horns. So it's completely, but the next time you have the same dream with that same demon, they may not have horns. So it's just, that's what I mean. It's kind of like, your mind, what you're going to be most receptive to is just kind of how they show up. Let's see. Did I miss anybody? I'm wanting to make sure I don't miss any questions or thoughts. So, yeah, there are a lot of different things that when we're talking about the different perceptions of demons, whether they're mythological, we have to remember that a lot of our hell mythology, like modern day hell mythology, actually comes from two fictional works in history: Milton's Paradise Lost and Dante's Inferno. Before, back in the day, Satan as an entity, Satan, which just means adversary, it's just a word. It's like a title. Like, oh, here, your new title is Satan. So, those two fictional books written in medieval times are where we draw most of our modern hell mythology, the lakes of fire, um, the pitchforks, the demons with horns and all of that. So, uh, just take that for what it's worth. If you haven't read those, go ahead and read them. But they were written as fiction. So it's very interesting to see how, the matter of 500, 600 years can actually change uh, something that's fiction into something that's fact. So when you think about, religion and mythology as a whole, just kind of think about that too. There's a lot of things that you just have to decide if it works for you or not. And me being kind of like a pragmatist and uh, a bit of a, oh, I don't know, a bit of a realist. It is. It's sometimes kind of hard for me being a practicing magician because I'll always like sit there and think, okay, so this could have been coincidence. So let's try it again and see if we get the same result. So when I work magic and I work with particular demons, I do it from a very methodic um, perspective. So because I want to see if things are really working or if it's just my imagination or if it was just a one-off, coincidence. Happy coincidence. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna just take a look at what we have here. No, thank you, Amir. It's great to. I'm always humbled when I talk to readers and they say, your work has helped me a great deal or changed my life or helped me in some way, and that is just one of the most wonderful feelings ever. So, let's see. I want to evoke nicely demons, but I think I think it got cut off. So the thing about like invocation, like when you're invoking a demonic force, so we use ends in demonolatry, and ends in alchemical circles, in alchemical terminology, means basically the uh, distilled essence of something. It is the essence or the either the life or the energy that flows through something. So I have a theory that when whoever coined the term ends, I believe it was Willett, eh, they were thinking of that. They were thinking of that alchemical uh, distillation of something more pure, more raw, as far as like an energy force goes. So when you're using ends, it's almost like a mantra, and they're not meant to just be said, like Yaden Tasahoet Naka Leviathan. They're meant to be like vibrated and sung and used at different frequencies to draw that demonic force to you. So, and that's a more respectful way of doing it. What's also funny is the perspective of ceremonial magic versus demonolatry, because we often will, write out a request and we will sign that request with blood and maybe even draw the demonic sigil on there. Now, if you did that in ceremonial magic, you'd be threatening the demon. I'm going to burn your sigil. Yeah, who cares? Okay, really, seriously. Nobody cares. The demons don't care. They're like, yeah, okay, go for it. You can't hurt a demonic force. It's something much bigger than a piece of paper. When you burn something, it changes it. It alchemically transforms it from the physical world to a different plane of existence, to a different sphere. So when you burn that, it kind of like transforms it and sends it out into the universe. That's kind of how we view the burning of the burnt offering type thing, because that's actually, as far as like offerings go, traditional demonolatry is mostly burnt offerings, and it usually involves a couple drops of your own blood. Because again, if you aren't willing to sacrifice a couple drops of your blood for something, do you really want it? So, excuse me. I got this stupid cold and it's just sinus drainage. Okay, so I want to feel their energy and to know them, not to tell them not tell them what to, I don't want to waste time there if I burn the sigils. Well, the thing of it is their energy is not the sigil. That's more like a calling card. That's more like a mental focus for the magician to focus on the intent behind why you wrote that sigil in the first place. Back in ancient Egypt, they said that writing itself was a magical act. So, and that's how Thoth became the god of magic, was because he was the god of scribes. And they believed that when you said words, or when you wrote them down, it was sacred because you were manifesting, you were throwing your intention out into the universe and manifesting it. So when you're actually drawing the sigil, that is you are basically making it concrete that you want to manifest this particular thing in your life. And then when you burn it, you transform it and send it out into the universe. That is how that works. So it's not and the interesting thing about demonic energy is we all feel it differently because based on your own personal elemental composition and the composition of the space that you're working in, and then of course the introduction of the demonic energy into the space, it's going to change that feeling. Some people get along. You'll always hear someone say, "Oh, you know, this particular demon and I just don't get along. I'm not working with that demon ever again. That was just too terrifying," or whatever. But then you'll hear 5 other people go, "Oh, that demon's great. I work with them all the time. Never had a problem." That's why is the energy sometimes doesn't mesh. The balance of you and them just kind of has like the effect of 2 magnets pushed together where they kind of push apart. And they don't, and then other times, you know, if the magnets come together, then it works, you know, but sometimes it doesn't. That's just the way it is. It is not bad if you burn the sigil with blood on it. No. I can tell you that. I've been doing that for many, many years, and I'm still here to tell you about it. I'm actually quite successful in my life. It's never caused me any grief. So now, if you actually believe it's something that's going to cause you a problem, let me tell you, you can bring that right on yourself by that belief. What you believe and how you view the demonic can greatly influence your work. If you're deathly afraid of demons, working with them could be a bit dicey for you. If you truly believe that you're going to get sick or something like that, you can actually make yourself sick. The power of the mind is a really is a very potent thing, and you need to be very careful how you think, not only in your belief, but in how you think things are going to come out, or how you're always talking to yourself, negative self-talk, always telling yourself, well, this isn't going to work. You can actually make it true, a self-fulfilled prophecy, if you truly believe those things. So you can keep a sigil on an altar with blood on it to connect if you need that connection like that. If that works for you, you should do that. And oh, that's great. Entity Fox is saying that that she or he has recently been receiving personal sigils from the demonic. That's wonderful. Keep great notes because those will help you connect a lot better, probably better than the sigils that are running around. The reason a lot of the sigils that have become are standard and why they're in all the books and everything is because they've worked for probably a larger number of people. But you will always find in everybody's personal journals, you're always going to find that they have their own personal variant sigils working for different demonic forces. And because it helps them personally connect better. So, but then when people run across one that seems to work for a lot of people, it kind of gets released into the mainstream, and then that's how you end up with the standardized sigils. So, what about cures? Let's see. Are you talking about demons like curing cancer? Because I don't see, again, that's where my logic and pragmatism come in, because I'm like, okay, demonic work can be supplemental to healing. Uh, some people may swear on it and say the demonic cured them from something, or helped them get through something, but I do not recommend demons in place of traditional medical care. Medical science is advancing quite a bit. I'm sure many of us have had ailments or whatever that had we had them back in the 1800s, it could have killed us. So, I mean, think about that sort of thing, including the common cold or the flu. Brandon says he can feel the heat of the demonic and has heard some of them are surrounded by fire. Fire demons tend to have more active energy, and depending on who they're interacting with, they can feel very warm. For people who are already fiery, they may not feel a change much at all. They may get a little warmer, but maybe someone who's an air element, who's used to maybe cooler energies, will feel a lot hotter and may even get flushed or feel like they're starting to sweat. So yeah, that again, it changes from practitioner to practitioner. Now, whether or not they're surrounded by actual fire, I think that's just a figure of speech, personally. I don't think that, there's really demons running around in fire, so to speak. It's more that their energy has that feeling and consistency of what you might feel fire to feel like, if that makes any sense. um, let's see. Oh, you're talking about curses. Is that what you're talking about? Sorry, I'm reading questions here, and flamboyant Furon Lilith Satan Set Witch asked, "What about cures?" And I think maybe he meant curses. Will you get karma back from curses? Here's the thing: if the curse is justified, first of all, if it's not a petty reason, we're going to actually talk about this in ethics next month. But if it's not a petty reason, and you don't feel any guilt for it, no, it's not going to come back on you. The reason a lot of certain groups or paradigms within the magical world say, "Oh, don't ever do curses, it'll come back on you times 3," is they're trying to get the newbies to not run around throwing curses for stupid reasons. Like, "Oh, Jack likes Janet, but not me. Well, I'm just going to curse Janet then." That kind of crap, that stupid petty crap, that's what that's to try and ward off. But with regard to demonolators, you're going to do what you're going to do. Now, and that goes with any type of magic. You're going to do what you're going to do, but you have to be willing to accept any responsibility for that magic that you do. Because sometimes you throw a curse and somebody dies and you didn't intentionally like want them to die, and you feel really horrible about it afterwards because maybe it wasn't justified. Your own guilt can actually, that whole mind fuck, it's going to mess with your mind, and it'll come back on you because you bring it back on yourself through a self-fulfilled prophecy because you feel bad about it. So keep that in mind when you're throwing curses. I don't know necessarily. I believe in karma so much as the law of attraction. I believe what you put out into the universe is exactly what you get back. So if you're kind of a shitty person and you're constantly being a dick to everybody, don't be surprised when you get that back. Like attracts like. So let's see. I gotta find my place here. Shelley Meyer asks, out of all of your books you have written, what is your favorite? It's interesting because that changes from book to book. I always say like the next book is like, oh, this is one of the best ones I've written. And I say that about every book, but I really have to say one of my favorite books to have written was Work Cunning for Demonolatry. I am one of those people who loves to tinker with herbs and oils and tinctures and pull out the chemistry set every now and again to do distillates. So alchemy, that sort of thing, that's always kind of been like a fun thing for me, as well as a spiritual thing, but also it's just kind of fun for me. And so I really enjoyed writing that book. That was a lot of fun. So that's probably one of my favorites. Keys of Okat and Infernal Colapateron come in closer to the end there because I mean, well, I don't mind writing about, the basic information, and I'll come right out and say it. Most of my books, the body of my work, a lot of it is very, very geared toward people just starting out. So, because I figure, once you hit that intermediate advanced stage of magic, you're able to kind of figure it out on your own. You're able to, you know, create your own ritual. You're able to, because you know that you have the building blocks for that to create all of that yourself. So you don't really need a book to tell you that. So when people are saying, well, advanced magical techniques, it's kind of like, yeah, those, if you keep going and you continue on with magic for years and years and years, you eventually start picking up on that and start doing your own thing anyway. So, um, so you don't really need books nearly as much. You might need them for like reference to go, oh, what color should I use for this particular thing or whatever, if you want to bring in different correspondences, you know. Let's see. Chaya asks, do you have any tips for being more spiritually in tune? I do. And that is to meditate. Have a daily practice and meditate. Whether you're meditating on sigils, whether you're meditating on a flame, whether you're just sitting there and being present and concentrating on your breath. One of the best things you can do for yourself, excuse me, is to have a daily practice and to have some time where you do self-reflection in some way, or meditation on something in some way, something where you're focused. And for those of you who are interested in meditating and you're not sure how to start out, I do want to point out that next month on my blog on sjreisner.com or thequadrant.com or sconley.com, if you go to that particular website, and I'll fix it and put it in the comment or in the comments or the description here. Next month, I am doing 30 days of magic, the Do Magic Challenge. And each of my daily posts is going to be a different lesson in a different type of meditation. Some of them will be repeats, but it's basically a free meditation class. So, check out my blog and meditate with me in February, every single day. And 2 days into March, because it's 30 days. And I think there's only 20, are there only 28 days in February this year? I don't know. I haven't looked. So let's see. I got to get going here because there's a lot more questions. You may have already covered this, but what is your advice on summoning and working with the 72 demons of the Goetia? I actually wrote an entire book about that. How to modify traditional ceremonial magic techniques for demonolatry, how to be more respectful. And of course, I included all of the ends. You can work with any particular demon within the framework of any common demonolatry ritual. A lot of people complain about having to build the elemental circle because it's too much like a protection thing. It's not a protection. Building an elemental circle is to keep the energies balanced within that circle so you do not have any problems, especially if you're just starting out. If you try it without that balance, sometimes it can give you headaches. You may feel extremely thirsty. You make it really hot. I've known people who've passed out before. So, but you won't know until you actually try that sort of thing. People who are more experienced often will forego that particular ritual construct. They will come up with their own, or they just will work with the demonic outside of a ritual construct. But that's because they know how they react to different demonic energies. And so they prepare for that. So, let's see. So yeah, there is a formula for how to work with the Goetia in demonolatry Goetia. I think it's available in everything, ebook, paperback, hardcover, however you like it. I like to try and keep my books affordable because I know, that I want them to be read and to help people. Which is why I don't do so much with regard to all of the limited edition hardcover stuff. Or if I do, I later on will put out cheaper versions of the books. Excuse me. Gabrielle, thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad that my books could inspire you and help you. That always like warms my heart when people tell me that. So, Brandon is asking if my newer books are more advanced. They are a little bit. I have kind of, stepped things up, and I don't go over the basics so much because it's really kind of hard because you don't know which book people are going to start with. You would think everybody's just going to go directly to the complete book of demonolatry, but they're not. And a lot of people complain because they're like, well, you've repeated this information. This information was in this book. Yeah, but not everybody's going to start with that book over there. They're going to start with this book. So, um, it's really amazing how many people will ask me questions that are in the complete book of demonolatry or Demonolator's Guide to Demonic Magic, but they started with the Demonolator's Guide series of the chat books that are like, possession and offerings and prayer cords, that sort of thing. So, let's see. Is it better to work with one pantheon at a time, or can you mix them in the same session? Now, I think that since I'm not a hard polytheist, I will sometimes do that. I will work with different demonic forces from different uh, pantheons and periods in history and all of that. If it works together, sometimes it doesn't work so well. I tend to keep, like, if I'm working with the Egyptian pantheon, I tend to keep them doing their own thing. I tend not to mix them so much. I have done some work with Anubis in conjunction with some of the other death demonic, and that kind of works okay because their energy seems to be the same. So it really depends. I think you have to just experiment and see if it works for you. They're not going to get upset. I mean, everybody's always like, oh, demons are going to get upset. Demons don't get upset. Demons are not petty like humans. They're not going to be like, oh, well, you have purple drapes in your temple. I don't like purple. That's not how they are. And they're not petty. A lot of people think that, but that's really not the case. I've never had that happen to me. Never had them come to me and say, hey, I don't like this color. I don't like, the fact that you didn't do this. The only time I did kind of get like yeah, is some particular demonic forces or god forms aren't really keen on the whole blood thing. But there's others that are like, yes, please, So, but not in that way, I mean, I'm saying it that way because that's how we relate. But some of them really don't care for blood offering. And the Egyptian pantheon's one of them. So, oh, Sebastian, I'm sorry you missed it, but I think YouTube records these and then, lets people watch them later, which is awesome. So, any demons you suggest for dream magic or dream walking? I would go with any demon that's either watery, airy, or you may even be able to get away with some watery fire. But demons with water are very much attached to the emotional side of things. And a lot of the times, if you notice when we dream, that's how our brain works out some of the anxieties and the emotions that we feel. So when you work with water demons, it kind of enhances that. So Leviathan, Tezrian's actually really good in dreams. Unzer's good in dreams, and she's more earthy. I've actually worked with Samagina, very successful in dreams, and she's more fiery. So, experiment, because again, different demons are going to be easier for you to relate to than others based on your own personal makeup as well. So, but yeah, I always use more watery demons for dream work and dream walking. Once you invoke your first demon, will you be forever open to the spiritual plane? Like, will you be more susceptible to little nasties and other demons around you? Okay, so what's interesting that I've discovered about working with demons is that when you start working with demons, and if you follow demonolatry methods where you don't like dismiss them or banish them or throw them out of your house, because when you invite somebody over, you don't say, okay, now get the hell out when it's time for them to leave. You're like, oh, well, I'll see you later. And you don't necessarily push them out the door either, if you're a polite person. It's the same when you're working with demons. You don't just push them out the door. I usually just say, depart in your own time. And what that's done with my space is it's made the energy in my house very demon heavy. I basically live in what I call demonic presence. And so do a lot of you out there watching this. Your house is filled with demonic presence. And when you have that strong demonic energy, it tends to keep everything from the other side out. I don't have a problem with astral nasties and the ghosts and all that, but I also practice warding, which is preventative, where you actually put sigils on over your windows and doors, and you anoint, and it keeps anything out that you do not invite in. So I actually did a blog post not too long, actually it was a couple years ago, but I think I recently reposted it on my S. Conley page, where I'm actually talking about banishing and who that's good for. Banishing is actually really good for people who have a lot of emotional turmoil in their lives. You should banish. You don't banish demons. You just banish negativity. You banish anything nasty or anything with ill intention towards you. And depending on the type of person you are, really depends on how often you need banishing. The reason so many different traditions beat people with that and say, banish, banish, banish after every magical work, banish daily or whatever their particular recipe for banishment is, that is that's going to depend. It's going to vary from person to person. Some people are very histrionic. They're drama queens. Everything is like this big to-do. So they have to banish more often because they bring that stuff on themselves. Some people will banish until the cows come home. And I'll tell you something, they will not, they'll still have something nasty after them, and sometimes that's all in our own minds too. We believe something nasty is out to get us, and we create our own reality from that. So no, I don't believe that have a history of mental unmanaged or anything like that. You can create difficulties for yourself. So let's see. So Sherry, not all of the ebooks are shortened versions of the physical books. I started doing that most recently with Demonic Prosperity Magic because the pirates have been very difficult to work around. Unfortunately, writing books takes a long time. And in order to be able to have time to write them, I need to have less time working the day job. And so I do need to get paid for that. I do have a lot of free stuff out there that I throw out into the market, specifically for people, but some people, that's just not enough. They just throw out the ebooks out there. And that's my way of kind of telling the pirates to go fuck themselves. Unfortunately, some people are like, well, that kind of sucks. But at the same time, if you look at the price of an ebook compared to the price of a real book, I usually only leave out a few things. Like in Demonic Prosperity Magic, you just get more rituals in that particular book. You get like it's not that you're missing part of the book, it's that you're not getting the expanded deluxe version. So all of the basic information that you actually need is still there. So, so new people understand exactly what are we learning in each book. Well, that depends. I've got like over 30 books. So I don't know, pick a book and we can talk about that. So, each book is what's in it. For Demonic Prosperity Magic, that's about learning how to live your most prosperous life, how to live your dream, how to make a living doing what you love, how to have more prosperity in your life, how to draw that to yourself. The Demonolator's Guide to Possession, for example, is all about, the basics of possession. So they're pretty self-explanatory. Sebastian, why are there only 25 people watching this live? Probably because it's in the middle of the day and most of them are at work or they're driving home from work. So hopefully, they'll be able to watch it later. Let's see, what else? So if demonic energy fills your home, angels don't come in unless you invite them. Okay, so this is where my opinion deviates from so many other people's. To me, angels are a type of divine intelligence. Therefore, they are also demonic. Angels, because they occupy a higher sphere, don't often stop in for visits nearly as often as, say, jinn, who are closer to the earth sphere. So if you have, for example, a spirit pot on your altar that is meant to attract particular types of spirits or a particular spirit, um, that demon's probably going to drop in far more often, whereas angels might stop in for, if you're actually working with them. They may not just stop by and say, hey, unless they have something really important to impart to you. So no, the angels are not going to be dissuaded from other demonic energy because they're technically demonic themselves. And I know not everyone's going to agree with me on that, and that's okay. So let's see. Let's see. So Theriel wants to ask a relatively long question. Absolutely, go ahead. Excuse me. Thank you, Phoenix. Okay, so how would you go about work with a demon? There, go to demonolatry.org and download a free copy of Modern Demonolatry. And all the basics are in that book. And that is a free download. That will definitely help you out. There are other free books and stuff there too. So M. Delgado says, I have angels and demon companions around and they all get along and no one kicks anyone out. There you go. So I agree with that. Flamboyant, Furion, Lilith, Satan, Set Witch. That's a really long name. We need to somehow condense that. You're new. That's okay, because Modern Demonolatry is geared specifically toward people who are new to the practice. It's probably not my best work. All things considered, Modern Demonolatry was like very amateurish. But, as a first book, it's helped a lot of people. So, especially people just starting out. So that will work. Let's see. I'm gonna hold on here for a minute. You're welcome, Sherry. Thank you. Yes, your sister writes the manuals. Yeah, I imagine it is extremely time consuming. It's very involved. You have to do a lot of research. And when you're working with magic specifically, I tend to do a lot of experimentation. I don't just, take a random spell and throw it into my book. I actually test them quite a few times. And I have friends who test them. And then we all come back with our notes and say, okay, what worked, what didn't work. And then we kind of modify and fix them. And those are the ones that I actually put in the book. A lot of the stuff in my books is basically my magic tested. So some of it comes from friends, and people, and from what I've learned, growing up in this practice. But a lot of it, especially a lot of the more current work, especially, is from my own years of practice and experimentation and my magical work groups. So, let's see. Zephyr, I must have missed your question. I apologize. There's so much going on here. Let me see. Oh, there it is. Oh, how important is it in disposing of an offering after a ritual correctly? I always try to dispose of offerings respectfully by taking them outside. I have a space out in my garden that is basically specifically for offerings. It's kind of like an outdoor altar, and I will dispose of them there. So especially if it's food offerings and of ash, of course, I always dispose of them outside though. But not everybody has that option. Some people live in apartments. So one of the things you can do, especially if it's libations, is you can put a planter of dirt out on your balcony and just maybe pour it there. If it's a food offering, you can probably just leave the food there too. If it's oranges or something, leave that in the planter as well, because eventually it's going to break down and rot, and maybe even birds or animals are going to come and take it away, and that's fine. But it's just kind of giving it back to the earth. So hopefully that helps. I'm sorry I missed that, Zephyr. Hey, Jaden, how you doing? Cytherial says, I feel like a particular demon has his eye on me for patronage purposes. It is a positive presence, and I feel intensely connected to one in particular who I feel fits the criteria of the one I feel. That's wonderful. So, as long as you have like given a great deal of thought and consideration to it, and you've worked with that particular demon for a while, and you've worked with other demons for a while, and you still feel that drawing, then chances are that is definitely your patron. So, absolutely. Um, a lot of people rush into trying to find a patron or matron and doing dedication rituals. And I always say, you know what, take your time, take at least a year, because, you know, it used to be back in the day, they wouldn't even initiate you into a coven until you've been practicing and studying and gone through the pre-initiate training. And you've been doing that for a year of consistent practice and everything. So, and there was a reason for that. It wasn't just to say, oh no, you can't get in. They wanted to, first of all, make sure you were serious and were going to stick with it. And second of all, they wanted you to take your time, learn how to take your time with things, because part of magic and working with the demonic isn't about the final outcome. It's about the journey itself and what you learn from the journey. And that's, you know, one of the things it's a very enriching experience. So, hi, Infernal Dark. How are you? Oh, it's good to see everybody here. It's so active today at 3 o'clock in the afternoon at Mountain Time, anyway. So, what is the difference between a matron, patron, and a master demon? Now, you know, one of the interesting things about, especially in the occulture, is I think a lot of like confusion and arguments and such arise because people use different terminology for the same thing. So, like, some people will say they're guardian demons. Well, patrons and matrons are kind of guardian demons. It's kind of the same thing. There are also mentor demons that just show up when they're trying to mentor you through a specific situation. And sometimes your patron will step back and go, oh, you know what, this demon can help you better with this situation, but I'm going to sit back and observe. I'll be here, but I'm not going to be directly in your face every day. And then another demon will swoop in and you'll start working with that demon. But it's not that you've forgotten the matron or patron or that they're not involved. They're just, you know, staying back. You know, it's like they're your homeroom teacher and then you have to go to all your other classes. That's a really horrible analogy, but, you know, if it works. So as far as a master demon, I've never heard that term before. So is that like a mentor? Is it like a demon that has something to teach you? Or is it like a guardian demon? Because a guardian demon and a matron or patron is they're very similar. So again, it's all in the terminology. A lot of the times I find that, you know, I'm talking to people and we're using different terminology and we're getting frustrated with each other because we're like, oh, well, that doesn't seem to work. And we disagree with each other, but then we discover we're discussing the same thing. We're just using different terminology. So that's something to consider when you start, you know, getting involved in an argument, any type of occult type argument. Always like stop and look and say, okay, let's define our terms here. When I say this, I mean this. What do you mean when you say that? Kind of like possession. The word possession drives me crazy because a lot of people will use the words possession and channeling interchangeably. They're not the same thing. Possession is because with the English language, there are a lot of very subtle differences in the meanings of words, sometimes not so subtle. Or, you know, so like possession is like kind of against your will. There's the implication within that word that you are unable to control it and it's happening against your will. Whereas channeling is a totally different thing. And that's you drawing the demon through you willingly on purpose. So it drives me crazy when people say possession versus channeling. But oftentimes we're talking about the same thing when people say possession. So anyway, M. Delgado asks, someone asked earlier if you would offer your books in Spanish someday, if you ever decide to translate your books to Spanish. Okay, so like totally true thing. I was actually talking to someone the other day who speaks Spanish, who had offered to translate a few of my books into Spanish, including Modern Demonolatry, which we're going to put up on, I believe that's one. We're going to put that up on demonolatry.org. If it happens, I don't want to promise anything, but I have this in the works. Also, Infernal Colapateron. Do you guys know Edgar Curval? Yes, he's been doing some translations for me too in that area, and he's going to be releasing, I think, Infernal Colapateron in 22 hand-bound hardcover copies, and then he's going to give me the file so that I can print it up in paperback for everybody. So that, yeah, so we're working on that and getting other languages to support my books. I think there was a young lady who came to me and wanted to translate Modern Demonolatry to Greek, and she did, and she sent that to me, and that's up on the website too. So if there's anyone who speaks Greek out there, the unfortunate thing is I don't know how good the translations are, so I really rely on you guys telling me and letting me know if they're any good, because I don't know how to vet people, because I mean, at best I speak a little German and maybe just a teeny bit of French, and I know how to count in Spanish, and that's it. So excuse me. When you're in the United States, there's not as much incentive to learn more than one language, just because we're surrounded by, like, the state that I live in is surrounded by all other states where everybody speaks English. Whereas in Europe, or other countries, you have like smaller, maybe smaller countries that are all surrounded by all these other countries where they speak all these different languages. So it's, better for you, for your job and everything, because you're going to be dealing with a lot of those people in those other countries. So you should at least speak one of the languages. That's not the way it is in the United States. And that's one of the reasons a lot of us don't speak fluently more than one language. So, excuse me. Let's see. Yeah, Jaden, it's hard. I mean, learning a new language can be rough. So Therial says, feel free to ignore this second part, but the demon I'm curious about is not often pursued, and I haven't seen anyone speak about being reached out to by him. Is it still possible? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Excuse me. Demons go through like popularity phases, especially in the online culture. You'll notice like, it seems like every 6 months there's a new demon that everybody's working with, like Belial. Comes up for like 6 months. And then you have Paimon has been really big, or as some people say, Paimon. Paimon comes out and he's like, going for 6 months or whatever. And so all these like certain demons have like this realm of popularity and all these people working with them. And that's mostly, honestly, that's just like, okay, one of the cool kids says, hey, I'm working with Sorath. And then everybody else is like, ooh, I'm curious. I'm interested. And so they start working with Sorath because they're interested. And so then you end up with like, all these people working with Sorath. So when people see that, especially when they're just starting out, they tend to worry that, if they want to work with like a demon that isn't popularly or more commonly mentioned in the online culture, that maybe it's not possible, but it is. It absolutely is. So I know, Sebastian, right? They teach you English. I think we should have requirements for being bilingual here, to be honest. So I was actually getting really good at German, but the problem is when you're learning a language, because I took German in college, and I think now they require for like college degrees, especially if you're doing a master's, you have to speak a second language fluently. But I think that should be like a requirement in our education system, that you have to speak at least one other language fluently. And I can tell you from experience, I was like really good at speaking German when I was in college. But if you don't use that, you lose it. Because you're not constantly immersed in it. And if you don't have the opportunity to use it, had I been smart, I would have learned to speak Spanish. There are a lot of people who speak Spanish here in the United States. And in retrospect, you think about these things as you're older. When you're younger, you don't think about that. You don't think, what's the most practical language I could learn? You just you just go with, oh, German sounds fun. So so anyway, so Therial, thank you. I'm so glad. I'm glad I could help. That's what I'm here for. And Shay's saying she could speak fluent Russian once upon a time, but now she knows just enough to get by. I could probably go to Germany and get by. So yeah, but it's hard. If you're not using it day to day, it can be very difficult to retain that language. So what do I think about VK Jehannam? I've heard of him before. I don't really I have to admit, I'm not like, I don't hang out in the online culture so much anymore, just because it's so backbiting and nasty, and people are so cruel to each other. It's a competition. It's like spirituality is this competition where, oh, well, this spirit likes me better than anyone else, or I'm the only person who can work with this. And it's so ridiculous. I don't like it. So I don't really hang out in the online culture. And so I have to be honest, I don't really know much about him. I've heard his name though. So, I mean, he must be like gaining some popularity in the culture, but I don't know him. So, and I don't know his work either. I don't know. Maybe someday I'll check into it, but I don't know. I'm kind of happy where I am. So that just doesn't mean I don't read other people's stuff. I do. I just tend to have tastes now that are like more specific. I think as you grow as a magician and a demonilator, there are specific things you find yourself interested in, and so you're a little more selective in the books you read and what you do. So cool. So see, apparently, Dimitri, apparently VK Jehannam he's pretty cool. So we'll just say that he's pretty cool. I'll go with popular opinion. Are the blasphemy rituals good to a former Christian? So the really good thing about blasphemy rituals is, okay, so they may seem like really ridiculous, especially to people who are like, don't really believe in that paradigm. But I can say, from not only knowing a lot of people who've come from very extremely religious households, coming into demonolatry or Satanism or Luciferianism, that the blasphemy rituals can be very helpful in helping people shed their indoctrination. It's a way to empower them, because so many organized religions take away your power. They take away your personal power and basically say, oh, well, you're unworthy. You're not good enough. You are flawed. And the only way to be unflawed is to do this thing. And that, it can be very harmful to a person's psyche. It can really wreak havoc on your self-esteem if you grow up thinking that you're just this piece of shit. So yeah, I think blasphemy rituals are great, especially because they do some really good things for the psyche, to help you shed that indoctrination and to take your power back. So yeah, absolutely. Oh, Sebastian, that's cool. I'm glad to hear that. I always like to see other people succeeding and getting their ideas out there, because the more ideas we all have and the more voices out there, the easier it is for us to kind of like, synthesize and pull into our practice new and different things that may work for us individually. So I think it's great. I think there should be more writers out there who are publishing books on demonolatry and demon work. And it's high infernal ascendant. So yeah, I believe that the more voices there are, the more information you have to build your own practice. So if any of you out there are writers, start writing. Share with us your vision. Some D ends. Dimitri is saying that he is interested in demonic alchemy. I want to alchemically transform my soul with a demonic essence. Do you have some rights for that or advice? One of the an interesting exercise I think you could try, Dimitri, is to start doing meditations where you draw the demonic through you. And it kind of, what it does is it kind of, I don't know, infuses you with that particular demonic energy. Because if you think about it, we are all part of the divine intelligence. We are all part of the demonic. We have a demonic within, there's the demonic within, there's the demonic without. So when you pull demonic energy through you, you empower yourself with that particular demonic energy. That's a really good exercise, especially if you have weaknesses that you're trying to overcome, or things that you're afraid of that you need strength, or, if you have to do a public speaking, for example, and let's say you are absolutely terrified of public speaking and you need some courage, just go ahead and pull the essence of the demon Lucifuge, or Folklore even, and just pull that demonic essence through you. And you will feel empowered. And you feel like, I can do anything. It's great. It's a great feeling. You should try it. Particular demons for beginners. Now, I always there are certain demons I will say are good for beginners. And then inevitably, I always hear somebody say, oh, that demon was terrible. They were really nasty to me or whatever. And it's kind of like, okay, so these demons have a better chance of melding well with most magical practitioners. I will say most, not all. Astaroth is really good with people. The elemental demons all seem to be really workable. So that's Belial, Lucifer, Flurios, and Leviathan. They all seem to be very workable with people who are just starting out. A few others, I would say Unzer, those with more feminine energy, tend to be a bit more understanding. You're not going to get as big of a butt kicking if you need one. Demons don't kick your butt unless you need one, just so you know. So yeah, there's Astaroth, though, is always a good starting demon because she's just so versatile. And that's another one of those demons where some people say, that I view Astaroth in the masculine. And so I'm very much a feminine Astaroth point of view there. How common do you think direct communication with the demonic is? I come from a chaos background, results-based sorcery. Okay. So Freighter Gator asked that question. Direct communication with the demonic. That's a really tough one because some people may just be communing with their higher self. I always say that, if the demonic is always telling a person everything they want to hear, or always telling them how great they are and how they never do anything wrong, and always agreeing with them, and if a demon agrees with, them cursing, going on a cursing spree and cursing anybody they just don't like, then it's probably just them talking to themselves. Because from experience, I can tell you that, first of all, when you're actually communicating with a demonic force, they're not always going to tell you what you want to hear. Sometimes what they're going to tell you, you're going to be in denial. You're going to be like, I don't want to hear that. That's not something I want to hear. But oftentimes they will also tell you things that you didn't know, that when you go look it up and you actually research it, you're like, oh, that's a thing. That is a thing. That wasn't just like my imagination. It wasn't just me telling myself this. That was an actual thing I could look up and verify. So demons will actually tell you things that you didn't know that you can verify. I do think that a lot of people in the occulture are too busy actually talking and yapping their mouths to actually be able to hear what the demonic is saying. But they will claim to speak for the demonic. Anybody who claims to speak for the demonic, run in the opposite direction. Yeah, if you recall, there's a lot of people in Catholicism who claim to speak for God too, and look how that turned out. Oh, okay, so you're not really talking psychic spirit communication. Okay, so, but I think you can. I think the key is to be able to listen, and even if it's just your higher self, it's the the divine intelligence, the demonic part of the self that the higher self kind of resides in. So even if you're just talking to your higher self, um, I think it's maybe not as common as people who are just trying to, I don't know, get a bunch of followers, which is really kind of creepy. No, nothing like that. But I never started this gig to have like people like want to follow me. It's weird. But again, just to help people. So I would love to get a copy of the Demonolator's Guide to Demonolatry Magic, but the paperback is a little expensive considering international shipping. There is a Kindle version coming. I just have to actually find time to sit down and learn how to use the software to format it. The problem is with these nonfiction books, especially the really thick ones, and Demolator's Guide to Demonic Magic is like 500 pages or something like that, is the formatting. It's brutal. I actually got the complete book of Demonolatry formatted by CreateSpace back when CreateSpace was a thing. They actually did it for free because Complete Book of Demonolatry sold so well. And they were like, we want to put that out in Kindle for you. And I was like, have at it. So, and usually they're like, yeah, usually we charge like a couple $100 for this. And I'm like, ugh. So I'm working on it. It is coming. It's just happening a lot slower than I want it to. A lot of things happen a lot slower. I'm kind of, as far as like all of my work goes and everything, I have editors and stuff like that, but I don't have people who do the formatting and stuff for me. I do all that myself. So, unless I hire it out. So, and that's kind of one of those things too. So, so yeah, it's coming, Gabriel. Sorry about that. Oh, Dimitri, I'd love to read your book when you finish it. It sounds fun. Hopefully you're planning on publishing it as well, not just writing it. So, are Belial and Beelzebub the same demon or different entities? Okay, so like we all know about the name game, how like most demons have several different incarnations of their name. Some of them happen due to misspellings when records used to be copied by hand. So, you'll find Astaroth, Ashtaroth, and so there's an H in one and not in the other, or Samagina and Gamagen, same demon. Anubis is also Ampu. So there's different, there's different names for every spirit. I don't think personally that Beelzebub and Belial are the same, but they are considered Baal deities. And of course, Baal is just the Canaanite version of the word Lord. So you have like in there, you have Baal, you have Belial, you have Beelzebub, you have Baal, you have there's a bunch of them. There's Baal-Por, which a lot of people think is Belphegor. So you have all of these different names that all have the Baal heading there or somewhere in it, and some people will say yes, they're all like variations of the same, or they're this one is but they're different aspects. So I always look at them as they're different aspects, and that's kind of how I was taught growing up. Is if you have like a demon with several different names, they're probably just different aspects. Could just be a spelling error. I am open to that possibility as well. So, let's see. Gabrielle Leonardo, so happy to hear it. Thank you. You're welcome. Brandon asks, who's another good demonolatry author you know? I know a lot of great demonolatry authors, you guys. I do. If you guys have not read his stuff yet, William Breyer, he writes fantastic books about demonolatry. Another one who wrote some good stuff was Brad Moreland, B. Moreland. You can find his stuff. He does a lot of like foundational magic stuff. And he has a book about demonolatry, witchcraft, kind of blended Hecatean magic. Really good book. There's Mike Delaney, who actually wrote a book about sigil magic. And I've done some work with him on demonolatry groups. He helped write that. And he also did some contribution to the Demonolator's Guide to Demonic Magic. Ellen Purswell writes about Goetic demonolatry, I think is her book, is Goetic demonolatry. And I don't know if she may have contributed some stuff to Demonolator's Guide to Demonic Magic. A lot of people did. There is Mike King. I don't know if you've read his work. It's M. King. And there's Hand of Glory, Demonolatry Experiments with the Hands of God. And he also wrote Divine Meditations, which is basically a demonolatry meditation guide. Really good book. There's Martin McGregor, who wrote Paths to Satan, which is more like a satanic, like kind of an introduction to all the various forms of Satanism. But he is coming out with another book next month called Book of the Fallen. And it's basically demonolatry and Satanism, theory, ethics, and practice, I think is what it is. But it's coming out next month. So it's actually kind of cool. I'm really excited about it. So, because I got to do some editing on that one. So there's just a handful of really great demonolatry authors right there. So there's a lot of fantastic writers out there. Some of them are more obscure than others, though, unfortunately. Let's see. Jaden says, also check out Sumerian, Babylonian, Akkadian mythos for knowing about the origins of a lot of the names. Absolutely. When in doubt, check through history and see where a lot of this stuff originated. You're going to find that most demons are actually gods of previous religions and different pantheons. So, and sometimes it's just a variation of the name too. So it's always interesting. Is a demon a demonized ancient pagan god or goddess? Many times, yes. The answer there is yes, many times. So that's why I prefer the definition of demon as divine intelligence, because a lot of the demons that we find in the medieval Christian hierarchies are actually gods from previous religions, previous very big religions in some cases. I tried to get into EA co-editing, but he's a bit too salesy and flashy for me. Yeah, I hear that a lot with EA co-editing. I've actually done some work with Become a Living God, where I contribute articles and stuff like that. Their sales tactics are a little weird and everything, but I promise you, EA is actually the real deal. I've actually had a conversation with him. I tend to try not to judge magicians on the sales tactics, because that is a bit, I don't know, Billy Mays for me. But when they're the real deal, you can tell when you're having a conversation with them. So it's EA can be an acquired taste as far as the salesmanship, but his work is actually pretty solid. So you're welcome, Noriko Roka. And I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing anyone's name. I'm terrible at names. How do I incorporate other demons if I've worked with Lucifer and Belial from the beginning when I started? Just start start working with another demon. One of the things about demonolatry, and a lot of people are like, well, I don't know what to actually call a demon for. One of the best places to actually start is with self-reflection. If there is something that you need to work on in your personal life, whether it be maybe you need more confidence, or maybe you need to really kind of discover where you want to go in life, and then find demons that will help you go through and find a demon that works with uncovering secrets or revealing things to you. And you can work with that particular demon and draw that into your ritual work And that's kind of how you start working with different demons, because it's not always like, oh, I need more cash this week. Okay, I'm gonna call on Belphegor. And oh, I need, I want to get laid tomorrow. So I'm gonna go work with Osmodeus. That's not really, I mean, you can do that, but you kind of get to a point where I don't know, either it's just not really your thing, or you've got different priorities or whatever. And the best place to look for demons to work with is when you do self-reflection and find things that you need to change or work on in yourself to improve your life and to improve yourself as a person. Because the more you improve yourself in your life, the more you draw the things that you want to you, and you manifest the life that you want. And that's one of the big things about what magic is about. It's about manifesting your will and discovering what that true will is. And that can take a while. How can I feel and see spirits? Not everybody can see spirits. That is one of those things that you either have a gift for clairvoyance or you don't. However, trust me, when you actually have an encounter with the spirit, you will feel it. Sorry, guys, I gotta fix my chair here. I feel like I'm falling out of it. Let's see. So that's a different story. And Flamboyant Furon, I'm not going to say the rest of that. It's a long name. Drawing Down Belial is the book you want to read if you're looking for learning how to work with spirits in that way. Communication with spirits. Communication and divination with spirits. Now, Jaden says his only complaint about EA is that his prices are a bit high. Yeah, well, that's probably true. Even I can't afford all these limited edition hardcovers. That's way out of my price range. I save that for really cool stuff. And it's hard to find really cool stuff. I read weird stuff though. You guys, some of the books I read, you would be like, really? So, but whatever. I went into, I had what is his name? Hawking? I'll tell you, hold on a minute. I'll look it up. Because I was really, no. I might be thinking of a different name. A couple of years ago, I went through this phase where I was reading this one particular author all the time. And he dealt with pulling spirits through, working with spirits in crystal balls and that sort of thing. And he was really fascinating. If I figure out the name, I'll drop it in the comments or something. Let's see, who else? So I already mentioned which demons are good for beginners. If you missed that, go back through the video. Let's see. Do I have any works about Lilith? I do not. Honestly, each demonolator will find that they tend to start building their own personal hierarchy as they progress into their practice. And Lilith just kind of never really made it into mine. So, I mean, it's not that I haven't worked with her in the past. I have. But I don't know. She's just never really been a part of my pantheon. So whether I've never really done extensive work with her, so chances are I will never write a book about her. Now, she may actually end up included in a book later on down the road, but nothing specific to her. Wasn't there that one author, Mark Allen Smith? Didn't he write a whole book about? No, that was Hecate, Queen of Hell. That's what I'm thinking. So that wasn't Lilith. It was Hecate. I actually have more instances of working with Hecate than I do with Lilith. So. Flamboyant Furion, I wouldn't have guessed. Do I think the evocation can fail? Yes, I do. I think that if your heart's not in it and your intent isn't in it, and you're too worried about things like, oh, am I pronouncing the words right? Am I saying this right? Am I dressed appropriately? Is my temple look okay? Um, I think you can actually like, hurt yourself. Or not hurt yourself, but like make it to where you're not going to get any results. You're going to hurt your results by not being able to focus. And that's where like some of the foundational stuff for any type of magical practice is really important. That's what meditation does for you. Because a lot of people are like, well, what good is it going to do for me to just sit in a room for a half an hour not doing anything every day? And it's like, well, it's about learning to focus. It's about learning to be present. It's about learning to feel the air around you. The more you're able to listen and with all of your senses, to listen and feel with all of your senses, then the better you're able to do that, the easier it's going to be to actually feel spiritual presences and to focus on evocations, invocations, whatever, summonings, whatever you want to call them. And to actually like throw out your will into the universe and then draw that back to you. Because again, like attracts like. I believe in the law of attraction. So does one zodiac sign, when working with a spirit, have an impact at all? Yes, I believe it does. I do believe that the zodiac, it all kind of comes together. Like all of these different things, all of these things you learn about correspondences and all that, it all comes in and it all kind of weaves together in the foundational practice of magic. So let's say, for example, I am a water element. I'm an earthy part of water. So you take your natal chart. To learn this, you take your natal chart, you run it through, you find out where your elements are, find out if you're the earthy part of water or whatever. And that will affect how you are working with particular spirits. Because if one particular spirit is more watery, I may work with it a lot better than, say, a demon that's more fire. Fire is one of those things that's maybe lacking a little bit in my chart. So I tend to have to bring like lots of water into very fiery rituals with me, so I can drink water. Otherwise, I literally dehydrate. So just being in the presence of that much fire. So I do think that does have an impact on when you're doing the work, how you feel during the work, how you relate to that demonic force, how that demonic force makes you feel. The vibration of that demonic force will also either work with your vibration or not. Sometimes when a vibration of a spirit is too high, for example, like a lot of people will say the Enochian spirits are absolutely terrifying. They'll say they had like this feeling of fear that came over them when they were working with them. And oftentimes it's because your vibration is much lower than theirs. Now, people who vibrate a little higher probably won't have this problem as much, but those of us who vibrate maybe a little lower may actually have our fear or our flight or fright response triggered by that kind of a vibration when it enters our space. So when you have an experience where you fear a demon, it's probably not because the demon's out to get you, or even that you're necessarily afraid. It could be that vibration is triggering something in your brain. So it's something to consider. Okay, let's see. Could you please tell us about the Goetic sigils versus the Ducante sigils? So I believe the difference. What is the purpose for? Okay, let me back up because we got more questions here. So what's the purpose for consecrating objects? Consecrating objects is to basically put the intent of what that object is going to be used for into the object. It's kind of like you are basically making it into a magical item for a specific type of work by doing the consecration. So it's not just about maybe even making it sacred. It's more about imbuing it with your intent. So really, a lot of things, when it comes to magic, a lot of things is about imbuing things with your intent and throwing that intent out into the universe. So every time you use that object, it's imbued with your intent. You use it during intentional work to throw that intent out into the universe. Is evocation different? You mean invocation different from evocation? I've gotten to a point where I've like just even stopped arguing that. That's another one of those things where invocation, evocation, summoning, they all have very, very subtle differences in what they mean. I still feel that evocation is to call from within, to evoke something. I still feel that summoning is more like I'm the king, these spirits are my servants, and it's a bit disrespectful. And I'm still all for invocation, which is basically, a respectful call to them saying, hey, come on over. It's like calling your friend saying, hey, you want to come over for dinner? So, yeah, so I think there is differences, but most people use the words interchangeably, and I'm just going to get over it. I'm just going to let it go and get over it. Because it's kind of like summoning and channeling. I'm not going to win that argument. So I'm just going to go with it and say, okay, I know what you're talking about. The difference between the Goetic sigils and the Ducante sigils. So the interesting thing is all sigils were gotten the same way. Someone who was working with these spirits sat down and did an ascension where they kind of either allowed the demonic come through them, or they somehow talked to the demonic or communicated with the demonic and wrote down the sigils from everything that they either saw or felt while they were working with that demonic spirit. So the difference is that you'll notice like sigils for specific pantheons have a specific look and feel to them. Like the Goetia sigils, they all have a very similar look and feel. Whereas the Ducante sigils have a very certain look or feel to them. Whereas if you find, I don't know, I've seen a few occult books where people have worked with spirits and printed their own personal variant sigils for different spirits. And you'll notice there's a very specific style to them. So I think sometimes that actually depends on the magician who's channeling or coming up with these sigils and bringing them back from an ascension practice. So let's see. Can you mix paganism with demonolatry? Demonolatry is pretty much paganism. We might as well just call it kind of what it is. It really is paganism in its own way. Because you still celebrate the change of the seasons. You still have like respect for the forces of nature. It's all there. Really, if anything, I kind of feel like demonolatry is kind of almost a blend of like ceremonial magic and witchcraft in its own way. It's got elements of both. So, yeah, just what Sherry said there. Some people combine witchcraft with demonolatry. It pretty much is like a blend there. And even, you talk to people who claim to be working within like generational families and stuff, they will tell you very much that their practices are very witchcraft heavy. Yeah, it's very. How would I go about picking and working with the demon? That is all in that book I told you about, Flamboyant. Let's see. There's a book by Anasa Rose called Hecatean Witchcraft. It's special order item. No mass production. Oh, that's kind of interesting. For those of you interested in Hecate, I actually think I heard of that book. I don't know. I know a lot of people who are into Hecate. There's a great deal of, a lot of books about Hecate and witchcraft. Okay. All right. Did I miss anybody's question? Because it's going on like an hour and a half here, and I should probably get going. I've got some writing to do today. Oh, somebody asked what my next book is about. I'm actually working on a book about the demiurge. So it's the creative force in the universe and how to tap that and use that in your life to manifest, to make manifest just about anything. So that is where I'm going with that. But that is all I have for you guys today. It was really great talking to you. I hope I didn't bore anybody too much. It was a great conversation, and catch me again next month. I don't know when. I don't really have like a set schedule. I probably should set one, but it'll probably be in the afternoon. It's always easier that way. So I will talk to you guys later. Have a great one.